number 3. Now, what I noticed was a lot of people who knew one out of the two things necessary, but did not know both things that were necessary, okay? So, let's mark this down. Y equals 2/3 x minus 4 is what we want to graph. Okay? Now, as we look at this, we know the general equation of a line is y equals mx plus b. Now, what does m stand for? Rach? It's slope, and it's how you move, okay? So m is slope, and it's how you move. And what does b stand for? The y-intercept, and it's where you what? Begin. Good. So when I look at this line here, y equals 2/3 x minus 4, just based on, can we pay attention here, please? Just based on where the 2/3 and the -4 are, what's the slope and what's the y-intercept? Rach, what's the slope?
2/3.
Good. And what's the y-intercept? -4. That seemed to be the one that gave most people a harder time. Now, what does it mean to be a y-intercept? What does it mean in football when you intercept a pass? Right, like the offense throws it, the defense catches it. In other words, you cut across and you grab it. So we're looking at the place, Stephen, where the y-axis grabs the line. And the place where the y-axis grabs the line is -4. So on your paper, everybody should do this. Go down to -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and make a mark. Now, what I noticed on, like, Ethan's paper, Ethan did perfect slopes, but you missed the y-intercept. Now, once you have the y-intercept of -4, what does a slope, because here's where we are now, what does a slope of 2/3 mean? Go how? How do you move? Roach, how do you move? Up 2 over 3. Good. So we're going to go up 2 over 3. Up 2 over 3. Up 2 over 3.
Oh.
Yes.
Do you have to make it that long? Like past?
Here's what you should generally do. You want to try to fill the graph. Okay? I'm not going to take off points if you don't, but you should. And the reason is because later we're going to do 2 graphs at the same time, and we're going to see where they meet. And if you only drew it from, say, here to here, and the other line you only drew from here to here, you'd say, well, they don't meet. Sure they do. If you extended them a little, they would definitely meet. Okay? So you want to make sure you get that done. Are there any questions about how to do number 3? So let me emphasize. Ready? There are 2 things that are very important when you look at an equation of a line. What are the 2 things you're looking for every single time?
The M and B.
M and B. What does M stand for?
Slope of
Hey, everybody, what's M stand for?
slope.
What does B stand for? As soon as you figure out what the y-intercept is and what the slope is, you begin at the y-intercept, and then you move according to whatever the slope says. Okay, you move. Now, y equals -x plus 2. What's the slope? What's the y-intercept? Come on, what's the slope here, guys? Rachel, what's the slope? It's always the number in front of the x. What number is in front of the x, Rach? Look right there. What number is in front of the x?
I can't see.
Are you saying you can't see because you can't see a number in front?
No, I can't see the equation up there.
Do you have glasses?
Yes.
And where might they be?
I don't.
This isn't good. Let me rewrite it for you. Ready?
It's on the paper.
There you go. What number is in front of the x? That you can see. Yes. What number?
2.
No, that's after the x. I want in front of the x.
Oh, there's a negative.
Yeah, it is a trick question, though. Thomas is right. When we don't write a number in front of the x, what number do we assume is there?
One.
A 1. But in this case, Rach, there's also a negative. So the slope is going to be -1, which we work as -1 over 1. And I was really happy to see on the quiz that people knew to put the over 1. What's the y-intercept here? Jason, what do we got for the y-intercept? Guys, your heads have got to be in the game. You can't be like looking off to the side and expect to nail it. Stephen?
2.
2, very good. Now, Ethan, why do we use a B for y-intercept? Because it's where you? Yeah, it is where you put the 2, but why do we use the letter B? It's easy to remember. Everybody help me out? It's where you begin. Very good. That's it. So I go to 2, and I mark 2. How do I move? Everybody, how do I move? Down 1, over 1. Good. Down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. And then I always like to do a couple on the other side here. A little off. There we go. There is my line drawn. Okay? So once again, the big things we're looking at here, y equals mx plus b. The m is always the number in front of the x. The b is always the number at the end. Now, let's go back to the other side of the graph. Okay? If we look at the other side, let me make this even bigger. 1, 2, 4. Okay. So now I ask you it in the opposite order. Everybody should know that our general form is y equals mx plus b. So what you need to do, Caitlin, to get this question right, is you need to be able to look at the graph and figure out m and b. Now, personally, I always think b is the easiest, because all I got to do is find out where the y-axis grabs it, because that's what an intercept is. You grab it. So where does the y-axis grab this line? Look on the y-axis. Where? Hey, Ishi, over here. Where does the y-axis grab the line?
-4.
-4. Good. Now that I know where it grabs the line, what's the slope? How do I get from point to point to point? How do I do that? Roach, where do we go? Up 1 over 1. So my answer is y equals 1 over 1x minus 4. Now, I don't really have to write 1 over 1, because when there's no number in front of the x, I assume that it's 1. So I could just write it like that. Now, let's just say that we want to go backwards like the ones we just did. Rach, you with me here? Wait a minute. Head in the game, everybody. Ready? Take a look. Jakyle, where do I begin based on this equation y equals x minus 4? The x is, that's going to have to do with how we move, not where we begin. The begin is always the number at the end. It's -4, so notice the graph begins at -4. Okay? Now, how do I move? Elena? Move the slope, right? What's the slope of this line? 1 over 1. So I go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. And there I generate the perfect graph. Listen, how many people enjoyed getting a disappointing grade on the quiz? Now, here's the thing. The last 6 or 7 people I've called on, all but one have been in daydreaming. They're in la la land. There's a point where you have to will yourself to make sure you're focused and paying attention. Then you'll get the most out of it. I promise you, for what we're doing now, this is very fundamental, very easily understood. I think you did it last year. I think you did a lot of it last year. And I think you can master this very easily at the level that we're at now. The problem is if you're daydreaming. You know, I just had to, let's take a break for 1 second here. In a minute, we will continue with going over the quiz and then today's lesson. But we had a little contest a while back. And that little contest was about what day Ziva's progesterone test would hit a level of 5. I know the answer. Did anybody put day 11?
Oh, it's one day off.
It's not
Put it in
11.
your paper.
It's not 11.
We good.
I did that to see who would, like I was waiting for the whole class to put their hand up. Day 12. Day 12.
Right?
You gotta have the paper for evidence.
Like day 47.
What?
I don't remember.
You might have been absent. We definitely had the contest.
24.
12,
Now-
right here.
All right. So here, you can hold on to that.
You feel lucky?
That makes 4 or 5 people. We don't do that, Spencer. That makes, hold on. That makes 4 or 5 people who, maybe 6, 7, well, actually, that would be 6, who have 12 as the day in question. So at this point, it's looking like I'm gonna buy a pizza and split it up during lunch. Yeah, I saw yours. So,
That's today's paper.
I put
did
17.
you cheat?
Yeah.
All right, so we're at 5. So we're working on it
You gotta take something else.
to see what's what. Okay,
What about, what was worse?
now,
Have to clean your mouth.
we have one more to go over here, Ethan. Now, oh, the reason I brought that up is if you were to look in my bag right here, we have a whole bunch of things we have to do right now to still get Ziva pregnant. And what happens is the minute that test reaches 5, 3 days later is when the insemination takes place to try to get her pregnant, and it might even require a 4th day. So I was talking to the vet, and you can bet that I wrote everything on this page that's in pencil was from talking to the vet. And I wrote down all the stuff that I needed to know that I now have to tell my wife because she's bringing it there. Because I don't want to screw this up. I have paid a lot of money to get her pregnant. And if I screw this up, there will be long-term consequences. I don't want to get rich off selling puppies. That's not the point of selling puppies. But I would like to get my money back. You know what I mean? So here's what I would say compares to what you're doing. If you want to be successful in life, where I look at my son, 27 years old now, strong as a bull, and he does a lot of stuff that requires physical labor. And there's days where he comes home and he says, oh my God, Dad, my back is killing me. Hey, look at his knuckle. It's been busted up, but he doesn't have health insurance to go take care of his knuckle. He's got all these problems going on. And he'll look at you and say, man, I'm hurting. And what I always tell him is the same advice. Listen, if you love doing what you're doing, do it. Enjoy yourself. But you better start planning for the future. Go to classes at night at Suffolk or Stony Brook and learn how to run a business. Learn how to own a business. And every paycheck that you get, put some money aside toward one day having a business. And then when you're 45 years old and it would really hurt your back to do labor. Anybody got a dad that comes home after working all day long and he's like, oh my God, it's killing me.
Yeah, get back.
Yeah, and it's a big deal. And here's the thing, most guys who get back surgery because of their job, they don't get paid while they're out. So it's a double whammy. Now, if your dad turns 45 or 48 years old, and instead of doing the physical labor, he owns the place where others work for him and do the physical labor, then he has the experience and the wisdom to do the job right. And at the same time, he could slow down a little bit, save his back, save his whatever else is hurt on him. In my case, it'd be my shoulder. And he can still be profitable. In fact, you make more money this way. So that's what I always counsel my son to do, and I think he should do it. And likewise, when you come to school every day, it's not so much about whether or not you're going to use slope and y-intercept the rest of your life. I have no idea if you will or not. Neither do you, by the way. But I can tell you this. I can tell you that developing the discipline when you feel like daydreaming and you feel like not concentrating, but instead you find a way to get yourself to learn to focus, developing that skill will help your whole education so that when you finally figure out what it is you want to do, whether it's run a business or own or something or whatever, you'll be really good at it. But if you don't and you allow yourself to daydream now, do you really think if all your life in school you always daydream when you get a little bit bored? And then all of a sudden, when you're older and you need it, you'll be like, oh yeah, I can do that. No, it's habits, right? Perfect practice makes perfect. All right, so let's take a look at the last line that we have to graph on the quiz. The last line we had to graph on the quiz was, oh, it says what's the equation of the line, I'm sorry. 2, 4, 6, and the slope was down 3. Okay, so going back to the whole equation of the line, y equals mx plus b. Let's look at this graph. Again, personally, I find it easier to find the y-intercept first. So what's the y-intercept of this line? You can look on your paper if it's easier.
Is the last one?
No, we're on the second question.
Okay. Six?
6 it is. Okay, so the y-intercept is 6. Now, what is the slope of this particular line? Spencer? Good. What does down mean? Negative. Okay? So now I would write out my equation as y equals negative 3x plus 6. And that's my correct answer. Okay? So what is it that you need to know to do well on tomorrow's quiz? You need to know this. Y equals mx plus b. You need to know how, if I give you the equation, you graph it, or if I graph it, you give me the equation. You gotta be able to go in both directions. No. At this point, Ethan is gonna go get his drink of water, and then when Ethan gets back, you can go to bed. But he's been waiting since class started. All right. Make sure you take the pass, Ethan. All right, so now, let's go to today's lesson.
Finally. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Sad.
All right. Now, this is not what we're going to have on the quiz for the next couple of days, but it will be your next quiz. Take a look at this. 2y, that's not what your sheet says? Do you have lesson 8?
We have.
Or you have lesson
Lesson
5? Okay. So that's good because it's a whole lot easier than lesson 8. Lesson 5.
Why all the way to lesson 8?
Well, I have the whole unit done. So, all right, here we have that diagram again with slopes. So let's go through it. We basically say that A is going to go up to F, and then A is going to go up to C, and because it's a straight line, the slope is the same. So I'm going to go up, and I'm going to go over. How many did I go up if I go from 0,2 to 0,6? 4 I go up. Good. If I go from 0,6 to x6, how far did I go over?
X.
X. Okay. Now, straight line, slope's got to be the same. I go up and I go over. If I went from 2 to 8, how much did I go up? 6. And if I go from 0,8 to 12,8, how much did I go over? 0,8 to 12,8, I went over 12. So now, I set up my proportion. Up is to over, 4 over x as rise up 6 over 12. Cross multiply, 6 times x is 6x. 12 times 4 is 48. I divide by 6. X is 8. Now, the first time we went over that question, it was very difficult. The second time, it was almost very difficult. By now, we should be getting a feel for this, okay? What I'm going to do is I look at the slope from A to F, and it's up 4 over x. And I look at the slope from A to C, and it's up 6 over 12. And since it's a straight line, those two slopes have to be the same. So since they're the same, I set them equal to each other, I cross multiply, and I solve. Okay? Any questions? Preguntas? Okay. Now, next, find the slope of the line connecting -2, 4 and 1, 7. Before you begin this question, I want to remind you of this. Y equals, or I should say, I'm sorry, M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Go ahead, do that. You guys just scoot back a little bit. Stop moving, start working. we're good, guys. Come on. Let's figure out that slope. Right now, let's worry about the slope. Ethan, see the question up there, number 2? That's what we're working on.
Got it.
Somebody take my paper towel here. Unbelievable. Okay, so when we use this formula, to the beginner, it might seem very intimidating. I don't want you to get too disturbed by the 2's and the 1's that are subscripts here. All this means is the y from the second point minus the y from the first point over the x from the second point minus the x from the first point. And what I recommend that you do, at least in the beginning, is you label the points 1 and 2. So I'll label this one 1 and this one 2. Then you draw the line and you put the minuses. Those are all part of the formulas. Now, what is the y from the second point? Head in the game here, guys. Spencer, head in the game. What's the y from the second point? Look at it. What is it? Come on, everybody. 7. Here's the second point, right there, second point. The y is 7. Minus the y from the first point. Remember, any point is always x comma y.
1.
What is the y from the first point? 4. The y is the second one, xy. Now, what is the x from the first point? 1. What is the x from the second point? -2. 7 minus 4 is 3. As we did early in the year, circle agar agar. 1 plus 2 is 3. So this slope works out to be 1. Okay? Any question about that? So far, what we've really done is, can you find the slope if I draw you the picture? Can you find the slope if I give you the 2 points? Can you do y equals mx plus b? Both see the picture, draw the line, or make the equation, and see the equation, and then draw the line. So here we have 3 more lines. What I would like you to do now is talk to somebody sitting around you, work together, and figure out the equations for those 3 lines. I'll give you 2.5 minutes to get those 3 lines done. Go. Work together, don't sit there quietly. Work together, guys. I'm not hearing too much talking here. You got to figure out M and B. Look at where the line is grabbed by the y-axis, and then look at how the point moves. Okay, see, listen, here's bad learning. Bad learning is you and you. You sat there and waited rather than tried, and you didn't talk to anybody, and you could have had help. We're gonna be out of here in just a minute, but, you know, they did a study at Stanford University. For those who don't know, Stanford's one of the best colleges in the country.
Yeah, but it is.
It's in California.
I've not been there.
Now, at Stanford, they started to notice that all of the Oriental people got the best grades.
Oriental.
And that, yep, all the Orientals got the best grades, and that the whites and the Latins and the blacks got worse grades than the Orientals in math. So they started to think, well, maybe Orientals are just better at math than the white people, the black people, or the Latin people. And then they started to look at the question even deeper. And what they noticed is that the Oriental people never did homework alone. The white people, the black people, and the Latin people did homework alone. Oriental people never did that. They always worked together. And when they couldn't get a question, someone from the local community who was also Oriental would come in like an engineer and teach them how to do it. So what they realized was that the reason the Orientals did better had nothing to do with their skin color. It had nothing to do with anything about them genetically. It had to do about their work habits and how they went about their work. Hang on, Rich. So what I want to make clear to you guys is your success or failure has nothing to do with your skin color. It has nothing to do with how much math your family does. It has everything to do with your work habits. So if you have great work habits, great things will happen. And one thing that's true about work habits is if you never try, you can never succeed. Now, as I take a look at this line, I see that it intercepts here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. So B is 4. And I notice that the slope is up 1 over 3. So if M is 1/3 and B is 4, what is the equation of this line? Y equals what? Go ahead, Ishi.
1 over 3 x plus 4.
Perfect. Y equals 1 over 3x plus 4. That's just like the quiz question that you had today and you will have again tomorrow. This one, here's my y-intercept. What is that?
Y equals negative 1x plus 2.
Yeah, that's the final answer, y equals negative x plus 2. The y-intercept is 2, and the slope is down 1 over 1, which is negative 1, and I put it together and I get, in y equals mx plus b, y equals negative x plus 2. Now let's take a look here. What's the y-intercept, ladies? What is the y-intercept on the third line? B equals what? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, negative 7. What's the slope? How am I moving? I'm going from here to here. What's the slope on that one? Stephen? What's that? No, it's up 2 over 3. Listen, you don't count this point. It's 1, 2. Okay? So the slope is 2/3, and that gives us y equals 2/3 x minus 7. Guys, this is very doable stuff. You have to dedicate yourself to it and work hard. What does M stand for?
Slope.
Slope, it's how you
Move.
What's B stand for?
Y-intercept.
Y-intercept, it's where you begin. Another quiz coming tomorrow. Hasta la vista. Vaya con Dios. Toodaloo. Ta-ta. Arrivederci. Smile a lot. Ciao. Arrivederci. Adios, amigos y amigas. Cheerio. Kadafis. Garusha.